Hello and welcome back to another episode of the ADHDads. I'm your host CJ,
And I'm JJ.
and working through some technical difficulties here, but I think round two here should go good. We were just talking about how thick JJ's looking lately with this fit journey that we're on with Coach Ray. Man, you're looking good, man. Looks like you've been packing on some muscle weight.
Oh man, I hope so. It's been an interesting week, brother. I kind of love how my kiddo is able to express what's going on with him. So on Wednesday when I picked him up from school, or excuse me, that would have been Tuesday. Uh, he was excited to go to Spirit of Halloween and check out all the creepy things that jump out at you. And
Mm-hmm.
we're there, and he's enjoying it and stuff. But he's kind of quieting down a little bit. Then we went and picked up. It was my birthday on Monday, so on Tuesday I said, "All right, look, I want to get something to eat. That's not just me cooking stuff." So I decided I'm gonna get some Chipotle. So we go to Chipotle, and Cohen's just getting more and more quiet. And I say, "What's going on, buddy?" And he says, "I'm feeling icky and slow," which I thought was a fascinating thing to say. Icky and slow. Okay. And then that night, brother, he he was in bed, and I was asleep. And then, of course, I heard something that I shot up and go, "Oh!" Well, he was in the middle of throwing up all over himself in
Oh
bed.
no.
Oh man, poor kid. He had a rough
Oh.
night, and I had to take care of all that stuff. I mean, long story short, the reason why I say that is because this last week has been a lot of pivots and changes for my workout routine. So yesterday I went ahead and did like 3 workouts because he went with his mom. So I was able to like get all the workouts in on one day. And it's funny because the scale yesterday said it said about 156, and then this morning it said 154.5. So
Yeah.
yeah, just the ups and downs of working out and dealing with sick kids and all that stuff is a real thing. But it's been fun. I've definitely been seeing. I haven't seen a lot of fluctuation in weight, but I have seen, like you said, the thick. And I don't know if you meant the THICC or the THICK. Either way, I take it as a compliment. I appreciate that, buddy. And I believe you are also experiencing some sort of transformation that is going really well. I believe your energies has only increased, and you also have a thinner look to your face.
No, yeah, I'm getting
And
face skinny. That's always the
Yeah,
first
yeah,
how you can tell when someone's losing weight is to get that face skinny. It's like
yeah, yeah.
starts sucking in. But yeah, man, I'm down about 15 pounds. But I also,
Whew.
I seem to teeter totter a lot. Like within
Mm,
like a 5 to 7 pound range. Daily, depending on like how much carbs I put in my body. And
yeah.
I went down like drastically because I was like, I had a nice spring mix, and I was eating salads every day, and there was like basically no carbs in my diet. But the weekend, if you put some of those pancake carbs back in you, that weight comes right back real quick. But no, I'm feeling good, man. I've only missed one workout to date, that I haven't made up, but I'm still trying to put in the reps and do it on days that I maybe have to take a day off. Like we took off for Maritza's birthday on Friday, so
Mm,
I didn't do a workout there. We took the kids out of school. We went up to this nice little Danish town in California. It's called Solvang, and it's just
I
like,
know that one.
yeah, very like old Danish. They're one of the earliest colonies to settle here, and they built this town like replica of Danish towns and stuff. And there's just windmills all over the place, and lots of like little cultural and things to see, and apple skeevers to eat. So we went and did that, and just had a fun time with the kids. And so I had a little cheat day then, and then came back and had to double up on my workouts. And I'm feeling great though, man. I really am. Yeah, I'm losing weight, and even if I do ping pong up and down a little bit, it's within a range, and I seem to be able to course correct pretty well. That's the biggest improvement from, I feel, my past fitness efforts. Is it would only take one thing to derail me. And you just did 75 hard, and I liked that program, but also I hated it because you slip up once, and the whole thing is like you feel like, well, great, it's all ruined. I should never work out again. because I didn't make it to 75 days, or whatever you tell yourself, but my biggest concentration throughout this is like, all right, if you miss a day or if you eat bad in a day, like we're not throwing the baby out with the kitchen sink, like I'm trying to refocus, be resilient and restructure. And, I'll either fast for a day or just make sure I'm eating really, really, really lean on the carbs and stuff to try to level out. So I'm feeling good, man. I'm glad that we're doing this with Coach Ray. Some days I hate him and I curse him and I think, God dang it, I don't want to sweat today. But always at the end of it, there's never a workout that I regret. So loving the journey, loving the process. Those of you who don't know, we've partnered with Cloverleaf Fitness and Coach Ray King. So, if you're interested in joining us on that journey and, doing what we're doing and learning how to curve your diet and incorporate a fitness plan, go over, check out Cloverleaf Fitness. Coach Ray will set you up with a plan. You can even use the code ADHDads, and he'll give you a sweet discount on his services there and get you set up for the next couple of months. So I hope to see you there. And if you do, drop us a comment because I want to know where you're at on that journey. It's been working out great for JJ and I, man. Naomi will tell you, will be happy to know that you're putting on some weight, brother.
Well, I gotta say, I definitely really appreciate another aspect to it that sometimes is often, it's not seen. And that's like, what your body is doing, what your body is telling you and stuff. Sometimes we don't really get those signs easily. We can't see them clearly. And I got blood panels fairly recently and everything was glowing. In fact, the doctor said that my cholesterol numbers were better than people half my age, which, I honestly, I'm certain that prior to this program, that would have looked a little different. Not that I would have been in danger or anything, but everything has gone dramatically up in terms of improvement in my numbers. And I'm really, really happy about that. And I have no problem bragging about it, because I like what you said with 75 Hard, the benefits to 75 Hard to me are the idea of trying to instill habits into your routine. So 75 days doing that is hard. Doing that for 365 days seems ridiculous, if I'm being honest. But, I think it was Tony Robbins, who's one of my favorite, now we'd probably call him an influencer, but back in the day, it was more like self-talk or self-development gurus and stuff. But what he said is like, do something for 6 months and it becomes a habit. And if you are so focused on doing it daily and it's in your checklist of doing everything daily, I think you can gain from 75 Hard certain habits. And what Coach did, what you just acknowledged in your own way of putting it, is that, I made an adjustment here, I made an adjustment there to manage and maintain this healthy lifestyle and this health journey. And that's an indication that you're trying to do better all around. And sometimes giving grace is part of that, improvement. So you're creating a space for yourself to have a little bit of fluctuation and not just like completely, lean into the fluctuation to the point where it's outside of the limits of being healthy toward yourself. So that's what I like about this program. And coaching gets you there. Rather than, you just being self-directed and having like no wiggle room for any sort of, dare I say, celebration with the family, like you were saying. And one thing I'd like to ask you about is, how's that kitchen doing, buddy? How are you enjoying your kitchen once again?
My goodness, JJ, it's finally done. Yeah, I want to laugh, but I'm so exhausted of the process. Like, we moved into a rental so we don't have to deal with these house issues, for the next few years. And it's 7 weeks later, we finally got this thing done. And the owner of this place flew out from Florida himself to finish putting this flooring in. So, I mean, it's just a patchwork of a job, but it's done. We finally have our kitchen back, our lives back, our routine back, and I can finally eat healthy consistently because I was doing a lot of, buy one, get one free, whatever we can get for the price of, BOGO offers at Pizza Hut and Buffalo
Mm.
Wild Wings and stuff like that. So it wasn't good, you know. So I was like only, you know, eating, trying to stay within that macro target, you know, maybe 3 slices of pizza a day with no extra protein, you know. And so like we had some good talks about like how to like course correct that and fix that. And, you know, there was a couple of weeks there where I was just skating by with like fasting, you know, with like long 48-hour fasts to make up for the pizza that I was eating or the buffalo wings. And that wasn't the healthiest choice, you know. But we got through it, and I'm eating a lot better now. So, you know, I think Coach Ray is a lot happier with me and the choices that I'm making.
Yeah, and you know, I want to kind of like bring the bigger scope of this, and I think what we're going to talk about today is kind of fits into this. But you know, just all the challenges and the pivots that you've had to make, and you know, the compromises your family have had to go through, and you know, even the food, you know, adjustments have been a lot. It's a big demand for you, and I imagine showing up for your family, showing up for each other, probably, you know, sometimes gets a compromise as well in all of that, and that can be really hard. And how do you prepare yourselves for the challenges of the day to day when, you know, somebody's not having a good day and you're already feeling that stress from the issues of, you know, house not together and eating out again and stuff. That all plays a part, and it's hard to sometimes be our best selves. I did that this weekend, man. I was not showing up best for my kid, who honestly, I've said this story a few times, and I say it with pride but also with, you know, a little bit of exhaustion at the same time. We had what's called parent meeting last week, last Monday night, actually, at my kid's school. And I love this. It's an opportunity for any parent who's able to attend to talk about their kids, because, as we know, privacy and what schools are allowed to share of families to other families, it's limited. But this is an opportunity for us to come together as basically like a school family, a classroom family, to talk about our kids. What can parents expect? Because, as you know, as our listeners have probably heard me say before, I get the luxury of going to teach every week on certain days at my kiddo's school. So if I have a little bit more information about the other kids, that serves me, it serves them, it serves everybody. And I told them on parent meeting night. So, you know, everybody probably is familiar with the whole like turn it up to 11 statement that we've heard, or that scene from This Is Spinal Tap. Well, basically, what the director in that mockumentary was trying to say is like, well, basically, it's still 10. You've just decided to put the 11 on 10, so you're just turning it up to 10, but with the you know, the idea that somehow it's 11, it's louder still. And I joked to the parents like, well, that's the thing. Like, my kiddo has found an 11. So everybody gets to 10, and he's like, I'm going to output to 11, and nobody else can match me. Saturday, buddy. Oh my goodness. We went for hikes. We got up to 7,600 feet elevation and did a hike in the mountains. We came back home. We just did a ton of stuff where he was constantly running around. And then it was like, I think it was like right at bedtime. I think I might have sent you a little voice message of him in the background making all this noise. Like, he did not slow down all day. So I love that he's got the energy, but it's also exhausting. And I think in terms of sometimes what I see from people experiencing him in the world is something that I'm trying to tell myself, like, this is too much for them, or they somehow are put
Mm.
off by it. And so when I did the parent meeting, it was a huge relief for me to not only be able to speak to these people and for them to laugh, because they're laughing because they understand where I'm coming from, because they have similar experiences with their own kids. And it just so happens that there are 5 other kids in the class that have neurodiversity in some form. And so a lot of people were just like, oh, yeah, you know, my kid does this. Well, he doesn't have ADHD, but, you know, that kind of sounds like ADHD. And, you know, we've experienced this way. What do you guys do? So there was just this
Mm.
beautiful collection of people coming together and just saying, hey, this is my kid. Oh, you experienced that too. Wow, we can really feel like we have a lot of shared experience. So then I felt much more, I guess, pride and joy in my experience as a father, and knowing that my son is being a normal kid. Normal meaning, you know, air quotes, he might have ADHD, but he's still an expression, or he's still expressing himself as he is. And sometimes there are certain moments where we need to kind of remind him, like, hey, this is not the right time for that. But we're not trying to tell him, hey, stop being you. Because, man, I'm telling you, brother, from an early age, the message that I heard in my head more often than not was like, oh, you're so frustrating. Oh, what's wrong with you? Oh, you're so sensitive. I actually had that said to
Mm,
me when I was young. You're being too sensitive. And that
mm.
was damaging to me then, and it still hurts today. So this last week, brother, I'm telling you, there were some highs, some lows. We'll get into more of that, but I just wanted to hear from you. Like, through all this stuff, through these ups and downs and everything, not only are you trying to manage a family, you're trying to manage yourself, and you're going out into the world and saying, hey, world, here's my family.
Yeah, it's been difficult, brother. The last couple of days, the reason why the owner of this place flew out from Florida to do it himself is my wife had a breaking moment, where this just became too much for all of us after 6 weeks of living in this, and he called and said, it's going to be another week. They're not going to do any work, and we said, what do you mean? And well, the guy got busy, so he you know can't come around. And we said, no, 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 no. Like, we got off, we looked up all the laws, the California renter laws in California, and we educated ourselves with what our rights are, what he needs to do, the time frame, and what our course of action is. So and it was just, again, a threshold of breaking point. And when he came out here and saw the place, I think it kind of changed his tune a little bit. Like, how have you guys been living in this, with 3 kids, because yeah, it was just frustrating. Every day you wake up and you come out of the bedroom and the first thing you see is just like everything a mess, your furniture covered, you have access to nothing, and you have to walk along this little 6-inch path to get through the house. And it just drains you, or you come home from being out all day and I want to relax, oh, what a hard day, and you open the door and you see the state of things. It's like, oh, it's draining, and like the things that we take for advantage of in going about our daily lives and routines, right? And how like detrimental they can come when those things happen, or we have, God forbid, like displacement during hurricanes where you can't even go home, and I mean, and we had that option, but our insurance was like, you got to pay out of pocket first, then we'll review everything and then we'll reimburse you. Is like, well, geez, we don't have $2,500 a week to be putting into a hotel fund, like it's just a lot, so we, had to advocate for ourselves. And when we did, we got it done. But it was hard for sure. And definitely could see after 6 weeks the detriment that it took into everybody's mental health, their routines, the attitude, and everything like that. So everybody feels definitely a little bit lighter now that we've got the flooring done and can move around and find some of those little bits of routine back. But man, I feel you with what you're saying. We had a tough week here too, brother. Um, yeah, some challenging stuff that was very humbling in our experience, and humbling to me. You know, yeah, man, we got the kids an opportunity to be in a bike commercial, and they were really excited about that. Naomi's done some stuff when she was a baby, that she's always wanted to do again. And I came out to LA to do acting, brother, when I was 19. And I've been doing it since I was a little kid, been in drama club, and always loved it as a form of expression for me emotionally. And I thought, wow, what a cool opportunity this will be to, like, get the kids involved in this and to share my passion with them and to like walk them through it. And and it just did not go that way. With a neurodiverse kid, there was a lot of overstimulation. If you've ever been on a set, there's lots of lights and clicking and people going around and stuff everywhere, and there's nowhere to sit. And it's a lot of hurry up and wait, and you can't talk. And a lot going on. It's very overstimulating for anybody that's neurotypical, let alone when we go throwing an 8-year-old that, can have sensitivity to that kind of stuff. So it was a challenge, man. It was definitely humbling. The day started with, I'm not going to wear socks and I'm not going to wear pants, which is something that we go through 9 out of 10 days, honestly. And it always ends with, there's certain circumstances where we need to wear pants and we need to wear socks, right? Like, and this is one. When we're going to go to a bike commercial, you can't be wearing a skirt and sandals. Like, you gotta wear jeans and socks, And she's just said, well, it's fine. When I get there, I'll just tell them that I don't want to wear it. So we had to no, Naomi, you have to be able to follow directions today. And I don't know what I was thinking, brother. Like again, I needed to I needed to listen to our expectation episode again before I went into this day and reevaluate where I stood on it. But I think I made all of my expectations about myself rather than like where the kids were. And there was a few moments where Naomi wanted to just bypass us as parents and get her way and complete her desires, and made things difficult for taking directions. And, instead of supporting my kid, I felt this need of to protect the filmmakers, or to get her to behave into their behavior expectations rather than maybe explaining, some of her neurodiversity, but at the time too, I was thinking to myself, I don't know if I want to, share that information. Is that necessary? Do I have to go into every environment saying, well, my daughter's autistic, watch out for this or watch out for that, so it was just challenging, brother. And I had to ask myself at the end of the day, wow, what are these feelings that I'm feeling? Is it more about me and my expectations and my feelings, or is it really about trying to parent her or teach her or quote unquote guide her? Or is it more about me and my own discomfort or quote unquote embarrassment or unsettling in the moment? So I'd like to hear more about your issue too. Maybe we can find some similarities and some things that we can ask each other. So
yeah, and if a bike company or a home insurance company wants to sponsor the podcast, just let us know. Yeah, man. I mean, brother, it is so easy to have a game plan and that game plan fall apart because real life doesn't necessarily exist specifically within a script. I suggest that sounds very much like a metaphor or just a literal sense of what you guys experienced, is that, we have a script and we need you to stick to the script. And the kiddo's like, well, my script in my head is actually the first one that I read. And that one makes far more sense than yours does. So what the hell are you talking about me follow your script? That sounds ridiculous. And when a person with neurodivergence is feeling a discomfort in that, sometimes they really they grab onto their script that much more tight because that's something that, in terms of rehearsing it over and over their heads, is always going to make more sense than our approach. And my kiddo with at school, we're going to be meeting with teachers tomorrow because he's had a couple of tough days where, let's say, he has fidgeting issues or he's making noises and stuff and it's distracting. And most of the time somebody says, hey, please, can you quiet down? And he will. And he's even actually really gotten much better at owning up to when he's doing something that causes a little bit of disruption or I don't know, hurt maybe, where he said, I'm sorry. And it's pretty amazing to watch this development happen. At the same time, we at home, I've definitely witnessed him, especially in the social part of his life, struggle to be more walking in the other person's shoes, walking in his friend's shoes. So his egocentrism is something that is of slower development than other kids maybe his age, and then maybe not some others as well. And I mean, obviously, if I were a little kid and I could just have my way whenever I wanted to, that sounds pretty much perfect. I want that. But yeah, when it comes to like the neurodivergent stuff, there's just some extra development stuff, milestones that maybe look a little different. And the incident that we experienced was really hard. To kind of, hopefully I can keep it kind of brief. But when we were, or he was after being sick, we were home and he was feeling better, and I was still finishing up my workday, but he was talking about wanting to go outside and play and find his friend who happens to live in the building right next to us. And I said, that sounds fine. I got done with work and we went outside. It wasn't very long after that this boy and his dad showed up. So kids wanted to play, and they wanted to play in the game room, which is great. We have arcade machines, we have a shuffleboard, we have pool table, and a chessboard and ping pong table. So I mean, it's a nice little room for people to come and enjoy and socialize. The boys have gotten much more into playing pool, which is super cool, honestly, for 7-year-old boys to be playing, and they're getting better. They're definitely getting better. We've established certain rules, maybe that look a little bit different than the typical billiard rules. One of them is, up until the last 5 balls have been knocked into the pockets, you can move the cue ball to line up a shot for yourself. Another rule is if you hit the cue ball and it goes less than an inch because, maybe you just didn't swing right, whatever, then you can take another shot.
So you're cheaters. Well, that's what you're telling me, JJ.
Absolutely.
You and Cohen are cheaters because, listen, we play by professional standard rules when we play billiards, okay? There's none of that.
So you're telling me just bypass T-ball, go straight to fast pitch.
You got to get them used to those 90 per hour ones, I'm telling you.
So we've got these rules, but at the same time, I guess with a neurodiverse kid, sometimes you need to be like, okay, here's the rule. Here's all the different angles of the rule. Actually, that just sounds like with kids in general, right? To be honest, that sounds like with any kid.
No, but you're absolutely right with neurodiverse kids again. Because our kiddo can pick it apart, man. Well, what happens if the ball were to hit here but not here, and I were to do this? She always finds the loophole, and that's her gift and her curse, man. I'm telling you,
Yeah. And I mean that's a great way to put it, because that we talk about it being a superpower is something where we can focus on something and really understand it from all the angles. Like I'm gonna perfect this because I know how to, and I'm obsessed with it, or I really have a desire to fully understand it. Like that's an amazing superpower, and I'm excited that the boys are showing that much interest in it because they're trying to get better and they're putting a lot of the mechanics to work. Oh, this worked last time, I'm going to try this. Okay, that didn't work as well. I'm going to go back to this, see if I can adjust. It's fascinating to watch, even with pool. And I'd rather just sit there and watch them kind of learn a lot of it than be like, no, you don't hit it this way. The other dad, on the other hand, is more like trying to tell his kid, like, I'm just trying to help you out, but you also got to balance out that fun factor. Anyway, so the rule of you barely accidentally hit the cue ball and it only goes like a half inch or something, you can hit it again, was one thing that the boys were familiar with. My son, of course, would love to just hit the ball every single time. And so he was saying over and over again, can I just hit another one? We said, well, no, it's turn-based, buddy. We're going to let the other kid hit. But he kept asking for it because that's his way right now. That's his way, and I'm working with him best I can, and I'm trying to be very kind and patient with him, which I do fantastic when it's just him and me. So I got to give myself props. But when it comes to other kids being involved, I'm usually a little bit more strict with the things because, hey, I want to make sure we're getting a fair, equal play.
No, I get that, because Naomi is the same way, and she wants to keep going. Or if she doesn't hit it right, it's, well, I didn't do it right. I didn't get it how I meant to. So can I go again?
Yeah.
And again, when you're right, it's just family. You're like, okay, yeah, whatever. Like, like, sure, give her the time, give her the space, But when you are trying to incorporate and like implement these lessons of sharing turns and having empathy and, including other people, it gets a little tricky. And I oftentimes get a little uncomfortable with, oh, how are we going to navigate this? How am I going to say it to her? Because, oh yeah, man, she's definitely the same way. Like, let me go. I didn't do it right. Let me go again.
Yeah. And that's where I want to say we talked about managing expectations piece really starts to come into play with the loss of that understanding from an adult to a kid. So Cohen, yeah, he apparently hit the ball like 4 times, like less than an inch. So he assumed he could keep, until he finally got a hit in.
That's strategy. You set the rules,
Yeah.
JJ. That's strategy.
Yeah.
He's
And
smart.
his friend, right? And his friend said, "Well, no, you already hit it so many times. It's more than an inch now." And at that moment, I also had the father talking to me. So I had a whole bunch of stuff coming in to me all at once, and it was a little bit much for me. And I wasn't really fully present because I think my stomach was a little upset from breathing in all the vomit fumes from the other night. To be honest with you, and so Cohen hits after even his friends saying, hey, no, you already hit it so many times. And the reason why he hit it is because he said, well, none of those 4 hits were, more than an inch. And he knocks a ball into the pocket. And he says, oh, cool, I get a hit again. And then the other father said, hey, Cohen, you did not listen to your friend. You disrespected him. And he just got louder and louder. He just got triggered in that moment. Everything got intense. And then he stands up and he yells, you know what? If that's the way you're going to act and you're going to treat your friend, I don't want my kid to be friends with you anymore. And then he grabbed his son and left. And I was just like, what's going on, you guys? I mean, it was intense. And then what did I do is I followed up with 2 conversations with my kiddo, which is a lot for him to take in after especially getting that barrage of
I was going to say, how was Cohen's reaction to that? Was he hurt by that his friend and the dad left?
Yeah, I mean, but he was also glad that he could just keep playing. So there was that. I'm not gonna lie. There was that component where he's like, "Cool, I can hit again and again and again. Let's play." So he actually did say that. But I said, "Hey, buddy, let's stop for a minute." I think it was pretty apparent that you had tried to continue to get more shots in and not really play fair. But your friend is also wanting to play and he wants to have that kind of back and forth mutual, respect for each other, to play equally, so you both can celebrate each other's hits and things going well, and just being friends to each other. It means sharing and stuff, and that wasn't happening. So his dad got really upset, and unfortunately his dad got more upset, and it wasn't safe and it wasn't okay. He got triggered and he wasn't able to help himself in that moment. So he decided to yell and get angry because he wasn't be able to control himself and trying to understand himself before he came at you with his emotions. So he basically yelled at you, telling you that he's out of control and he wants you to change. And that's not the way. That's a tantrum. That's a tantrum that what was fascinating about it in that moment when he was escalating, getting louder, his son said, "No, Dad, it's okay." Being the emotionally present adult in the room, his son saying, "It's okay, I'm working with Cohen," essentially, but that was overridden by the tantrum. And unfortunately, what that does to our kids is that's a message that says, hey, if I don't agree with you and I don't know how to talk it through with you, if I yell louder, puff out my chest, get bigger, I can win this situation over you. And I can make it about me and where I'm coming from and forget you and where you're coming from. So I saw expectations on a young kid being far greater than they should be, and the curiosity thrown out the window. And that's kind of the big thing too for me, is like going into a situation with expectations is very important when it comes to our kids with neurodiversity. And this guy is not in any way unfamiliar with the fact that my kiddo has neurodiversity. In addition to that, it does become frustrating. I experienced frustration this weekend myself with Cohen, and I lost my cool on him. And I was, that sounds bad, but yeah, I lost my patience and I was frustrated and I was on edge. What I have the benefit of is that I don't just leave it at that with my son. We talked in a recent episode about forgiveness, grace, and all that stuff, and that's something that I always need to circle back with Cohen on, because I don't want to paint this picture like Dad is, not only is he unpredictable in how he's going to respond to this, but he doesn't come back to me to admit when he's wrong. So I have to guard myself. So with this guy being in his state, he does not present something that I would consider is stable and predictable. And so therefore it makes me a little bit on guard now. And I don't like that. I
Mm.
wanted to have that conversation with Cohen about being a good friend and what does that look like. And I felt a little bit frustrated that I was trying to talk with him about it and it didn't seem to get through to him.
Mm.
That's when I go back to the expectations piece and say, hey, your kiddo is in his state of development. You know this about him. Don't try to now shame him,
Yeah.
which is easy to do because you don't feel happy about the situation. It sucks that we do have to repeat these conversations over and over again because we want our kids to have just nothing but fantastic relationships, and fantastic moments. But the truth is, dare I suggest, like, maybe on set, I'm not going to say like you should have done this, Colton, because that's not my point here. It's like sometimes setting those expectations, asking questions of the people because you know your kid really well, and then coming to some form of understanding, knowing that the script is actually going to go off in many times. Take 1, take 2, take 3, take 456. Who knows? But going in with the knowledge of this is what you could possibly expect, and that's my kid, and I love my kid, and I work with my kid. I don't want to feel embarrassment over what my kid does because, damn it, I'm putting in the work.
Mm.
I'm putting in the work because I care. And it's going to be hard for me to know that this takes a lot of work, but it's also going to be of great value to my kid and to myself and to the people that we interact with if I tell them, here's the expectations. You can't expect that this is going to go exactly the way you want it to. And it's going to be hard sometimes, but just know that that little kid is trying. This kid's parent is trying, and you want to try as well. Grace, please.
Yeah. Man, I wanted to ask you some tough questions there about maybe why you wanted to rush into that conversation with Cohen about being a good friend and
Yeah, man.
how our choices impact others. But you seem to kind of self-identify some of the things that maybe you were feeling in those moments with defensiveness and
Mm-hmm.
embarrassment or triggered in some way or another. But then you also feel embarrassed that maybe you feel embarrassed that you know, because I wanted to bring that up because I felt myself having some moments like that too with our kiddo on set. And there was a moment where my wife was getting frustrated with her, because all of the questions that we said don't ask, and all the things we said don't do when we get there, she did it, and I could see my wife like bubbling over at that point of like this need to disrespect or disobey or whatever, where maybe I was trying to look at it in the lens of like, again, this is overstimulating. She needs something that she can get control over, right? Like whether it just be the way she's posing, the color bike that she's on, the helmet that they wanted to give her. She just like argued about everything. She wanted this color, that bike, this one, that one. She wanted to do this and pose this way. And they were trying to put her this way and that way. And, she was just doing that kind of ODD tendency that shows up in her ASD, which is that oppositional defiance, of no, it's this, no, it's that, and I was definitely getting frustrated, but I was trying to, what is that about that I'm getting frustrated? But, my wife just kind of got in that defense mode of trying to protect, everything that's going on. And, Naomi, I told you not to do that, and she kind of scalded her for it, and I wanted to go reassure her, and say like, oh, like what can we do to like get you comfortable so that you want to do this? But instead I just backed up my wife and just mirrored what she said. And I said, see what happens when you don't listen? And then I just like immediately felt like, what the fuck did you say that for, Colton? Like, God dang it. That was not what you said you wanted to say. And that's not the words that you wanted to come out of your mouth. What happened? And of course, when I put that shame on her in the moment, she just sat down, arms crossed, started crying. I'm the worst, and I just, fuck, I can't believe I just did that, like, why did I do that? And I just spent all day trying to ask myself that question and to tear into that, and yeah, like, God, we want so badly to help, but sometimes that comes in the form of shame almost, or maybe a
Parents are
better
capable of
strategy.
going off script too.
Yeah, like I know that you have a good intention of, well, now's the moment that he will connect to this and see. Do you see how, like, if we're not listening to other people, if we don't share, and this is what can happen. People get frustrated and they leave, even though the man is wrong for the way that he handled that and left and drug his son out of there. It still feels like maybe an appropriate opportunity that maybe because it just happened, it's in front of us, we can connect with our neurodivergent kids about this thing, but that's what you hope for, right? I mean, that's what you said that your expectation was going into that conversation was, that I can get him to see that. And then you felt let down in a sense of he didn't see it, he didn't understand it, he just wanted to go on playing pool, right? And our thing with Naomi was also very similar. It wasn't even that we were yelling at her or scalding her or shaming her for not listening to us. What it really boiled down to was there was a donut that we had promised her, and Mama was threatening to take that donut away if she was going to keep arguing and not listening. And that was the thing, again, that I'm not getting what I want, so I'm going to melt down. It had nothing really to do with the scalding or she can navigate that. She doesn't listen all the time, and she goes opposite of what you're saying all the time, right? Like, that's just how she operates. She knows the ins and out of that. It's I don't get the donut that was world crushing to her. And same to Cohen. It's now I don't get the turn, I'm not good. I didn't get it in, and no one, like, now it's their turn. This is boring, so it's just easy. It's just interesting how sometimes we can miss the mark on those things with as great as intentions that we have, and I wanted to tell you this quick story too. We went out to go get ice cream after that event, right? And since she didn't get the donut, we all just, everybody, all the other kids were great too. Again, we have to reward them. So we end up at an ice cream shop, and as we're leaving, I say, okay, everybody say thank you, and little one says thank you, middle one says thank you, and our ASD one goes, who am I saying thank you to? I said, the workers. And she said, why? Like, rude AF, JJ, just why? And I said, because they just gave us ice cream. And she rolled her eyes. I've never seen her roll her eyes. And she went, whatever, and walked out like a little sassy teenager. And I was like so embarrassed, because these guys were like sitting there waiting, smiles on their face, waiting for the thank you. And then they're like looking at each other like, oh, this little fucking girl, and I was embarrassed for a quick second, hot second,
sure.
Like, what the heck, And again, even Mom was like, Naomi, like, we go out and we talk to her. Why, what was that about? Why didn't you say thank you? And again, in her world, JJ, in her ASD brain, it's their job to get us ice cream. Why would I say thank you? It's their job. Well, you still have to be polite. Well, I didn't know that, And we just want to God, she's intentionally being rude. The embarrassment that I personally feel, I'm going to take all of this personally, because they're going to think this is reflecting on, I'm a bad parent because she acts like that. And this reflects on me, and I'll never see these people again at this Cold Stone Creamery, but I'm going to take this embarrassment with me for the rest of the day and stomp about. And what really just needed to happen is some understanding and curiosity, and just she doesn't have the neural pathways to connect the logistics of that yet. That doesn't make sense. That's not part of her common sense, to just be nice to everybody. Why? It's their job. They already get paid for it.
The transaction is complete. Why do I have to turn around and try and re-engage with the transaction that's already done? Yeah, you should have had her put a tip in the tip jar, because don't they sing at Cold Stone Creamery after you've tipped?
I think it was actually Ben and Jerry's, so it wasn't Cold Stone.
Yeah, man. I mean, I feel all that, and it's fascinating to me because I'm thinking about it from the parent standpoint. I'm thinking about it from the kid standpoint, and it. The more I give myself the luxury of time to think it over, the more I'm like, yeah, kiddo's got it figured out. Like I'm gonna pose you a question. I'm gonna create a scenario for you, kid. And what do you think this person would be feeling? Well, I don't know, but this is what I'm feeling. Why should I be feeling what they're feeling? I'm the one in that situation that I am. What's why should I think that? Like I got what I needed. Beyond that, what's the point? That's where they're at in their development, and I can't blame them for that because that is entirely logical. And probably for a lot of the animal world, that is what they do. It's like I don't need to go beyond. I need to survive. I don't care. This is what I need to do. So it makes sense to me. And then in terms from the parent standpoint, I had a little bit of a kind of a switch when I became a parent. You know how that is, like where you've never been a parent, and there's a person in the store who's got a crying baby, crying kid, or whatever, and your ears just like they feel like that's nails on the chalkboard feeling. Everything you just tense up a little bit. And then when you're a kid and you're walking through the store and your kid's crying or whatever, like you're not thinking about all the people around you and how they're reacting to you. You're like, this is life. This is what's going on, and I'm okay with that. It's not always fun, but that's the reality of the situation. And then the kids they go from crying to reasoning, and so their developmental track is kind of we're seeing it mature, but it's still not to the point of the empathy yet. So they're continuing that journey, and at some point along the way, we like try to stop that journey and say, no, we need you to jump over this cavern or this hole to get to where we want you to get to, because now you're able to talk and you're able to reason, so you should be able to empathize too. So at some point along the way, I go from I don't care what other people think, this is just my kid crying because they're uncomfortable, to I think I need to apologize on behalf of my kids and my family. But then I need to stop myself later when I have the space to think about it further and say, you know what? I don't. If somebody actually believes that I am enabling this kid's behavior, when it's maybe it's kind of questionable if it's good or right, or if it's even mean. I don't know. Mean is kind of a really difficult thing to put on a kid who's still in their egocentric world. But when somebody kind of looks at me in a certain way and suggests like, hey, I'm raising my kid poorly, they're the ones who are clueless and are putting out expectations that are just unrealistic. So when I have the opportunity to get that space to think about it, I'm like, you know what? All right, back to where my kiddo is in his journey of self-development and maturation and empathy and all that stuff. This is where he's at. It's going to take a lot of work. How do I do that? I model this behavior. Man, it is so good. What I've talked about it before in the podcast about praising him, even in the little things, and him turning around and want to share that gift with somebody else. Like I see that developing in him. And I was pretty slow to have that development as well, to be honest with you. But man, if I don't turn around and say, dude, why didn't you think about this person in that situation? Instead saying, hey man, yeah, so I noticed this. Let's play this out. Let's think about this scenario. Then I can maybe reach him in those moments, but I can't expect him to go from A to Z just like that. His reasoning is going to be little leaps, and sometimes it'll be miss the lily pad altogether and fall in the water and start over, swim back. And that's okay, because damn it, I'm the adult. I get the luxury of being able to bring all this experience of life to my kiddo who's like still stumbling along the way. And I stumble, oh my God, man, I stumble more than he does probably. But being able to like acknowledge that, and with her I love that story. With her saying, why should we thank them? I'm like, yeah, okay. Logically, I think she's got that figured out. Maybe a little bit need to work on the the delivery of that message a little bit, but we could talk about that later. I've done that where Cohen has said something and I'm just like, it probably comes across on the on the receiving end a little bit different than what you're intending. So maybe I can say sorry, but I don't have to be like, I'm sorry, my kid is he just doesn't give a crap about you. I can say, hey, just so you know, like his mind's just not there. His emotional like his interests right now are within. They're not so much on you. And that's not a statement about you. It's a statement about where he's at in his journey. And that's okay. It's tough in the moment when everybody's like, all right, well, I just noticed that my heart skipped a beat and I'm a little tense and I feel strange. But the truth is, it's like, man, when we pause and then we think about, oh, yeah, my expectations are getting a little bit unreasonable here. And then we start to see, okay, this is where our kids are at. That's cool. We can have a conversation. I don't need to give in. I don't need to shame them for this, because what did I just tell myself earlier? Oh, yeah, that's where they've been at. They're just being them.
Yeah, man, I turned into one of those set parents that you hear horror stories about. I didn't see that coming. It was kind of surprising, like
Oh,
I
man.
didn't
Off script, brother.
I told myself I was not going to do that at all, but I just felt myself getting so wanting my atypical daughter to mold into everybody else's expectations. And that was not right of me, and I don't know if film set is the best place, for neurodivergence. There's a lot going on and everybody's got high expectations and they're mean about it when you don't meet them, you know? That was a humbling thing to see. Like, I wouldn't want to put my kids through what I went through in Hollywood and some of the on-set relationships I've had with egocentric directors, right? Like, there's enough egocentrism going on a set that I don't know if I need my ASD kid to navigate that, So that was humbling, brother. It truly was. And yeah, do you ever God, what is the show called? It's a dating show about neurodivergence on the
A Love
spectrum.
on the Spectrum.
Love on the
Yeah.
spectrum. Do you watch that show at all?
I've only seen one episode.
God, my wife and I love that show. It is so
Well, I'm gonna put it
heartwarming,
on.
man. It is so heartwarming. We love the crap out of that show. Where we watch dating shows more for like the trash fire that it is. This is an authentic one, brother. Like
Okay.
these people just want love, and to watch them go through these connections, it's everything that you and I experience, the awkwardness of dating. But like looking at it through like what that could be like for a neurodivergent is humbling, And I don't know who it was. Comedian I just watched, was it Jim Jeffries? I don't know. He was talking about only Australians would put that show out.
Jim Jeffries.
Yeah, only Australians would put that show out, like, you ever heard of autism? It's a whole bunch of people that don't like social situations. So let's put them in social situations and stick some fucking cameras in their faces. That's a great TV show, right?
You made me think of, there's this movie that I haven't watched the whole way through it. So, I can only give my assessment as it is right now, but Woody Harrelson's in it. It came out on Amazon Prime. It's called Champions. And he's a basketball assistant.
Oh yeah,
coach.
We watched that too the other night. We loved that. That was a great movie.
Okay, so
yeah.
I haven't watched it through. I think I'm only maybe halfway through it. But what I really appreciated is kind of what you said about on set. Like you've got a bunch of people with developmental disabilities, and you see him like in his early stages of community service trying to coach this team, and he's like frustrated. Nobody's doing what he wants. He had these expectations for this, group who's like, we're just here to enjoy our time together. That's it. We have nothing beyond that. That's what we love to do. I'm going to celebrate whether I make the shot or not. I'm like, yeah, that's an awesome concept. And I just, what I like about it is that, it feels very authentic. And then, I think about what you just said about being on set, like take back the layers of also behind the scenes of trying to film that. And these actors probably were sometimes being like, I don't know what you want me to do. I'm just going to do whatever I want. And then they filmed it. So I imagine there's like multiple layers of expectations and execution and stuff like that with something like that. And it came together to be something sweet, because in some ways there was enough understanding of what we're working with here to make this work. And we're going to have to probably spend some more time taking takes, or just saying, you know what, that's the best take we're going to get. We're good with that. And I love that. Like, so with that in mind, I said off script earlier, I'm going to say it again. We're going to go off script with our kids. Some of the best moments are going to be the bloopers. Some of the best moments are going to probably be take take 10, and it won't be the best shot, but it'll be what our kids are capable of. And God dang it, man, isn't that great that we can still celebrate that? Be like, oh yeah. Naomi didn't want to say thanks. She's like, why should I thank them? Like, looking back, that's kind of funny. And I bet those people probably will go home later. They'll be like, yeah, there's this kid. Yeah, oh man, she had some spunk to her. It was, I'm looking at, like, I doubt they're going home and going like, oh man, I wish I could find that kid and throw some ice cream in her face and stuff. They're probably like,
But that's the story I tell myself, right? When I'm like in it and they, oh my God, she didn't say thank you. Oh, look at the looks that they're giving me. They're probably not even giving any looks, right? Like it's a story I create for myself. And I'm sorry that you haven't finished that movie yet, because I'm going to spoil it for you right now, because it's a perfect way to wrap this episode up. So, but the last scene of that movie, there's this kid that he misses the shot, and everybody's cheering, on the team. And Woody Harrelson goes, "What? Why are you cheering? He didn't make the shot." And they're all go, "Yeah, but he hit the rim. That's the closest he's ever come." Yeah. And they go off celebrating. He's just sitting there like, huh. And maybe that's what our focus should be,
Yeah. Well, there was
not that
movie.
They didn't make the shot, but that they got closer that they've ever been,
Yeah, and there was this movie with Jennifer Lopez and Owen Wilson. I don't know where you can watch it, but she was or is, whatever you want to say, a famous pop star, and he brings a sign that says, "Will you marry me?" to the concert, and she looks at it and says yes. I mean, it's totally ridiculous, but at the same time, it was kind of a sweet movie. I love those romantic comedies, not gonna lie. And in the end of the film, the daughter of this guy is in like some sort of, I want to say it's like mathlete competition, and it's a big deal one, and they lost last time, and she goes up and she has the answer, and she says the answer right after the timer went out. So it wasn't considered, a success. They lost. And she was so disappointed. And her dad runs up on stage and says, "I'm so proud of you." And she says, "But I lost it." And I love the fact that the father was like, "I don't need you to get first place for me to be proud of you. You are making mistakes. You're learning along the way. And that is amazing. I am so happy for the person you are now." And that's the thing, buddy. When, I've talked through so many different stories, experiences in Cohen's life. And I know I get hard on him sometimes too, so I'm a part of the issue occasionally as well. But when I witnessed, like, let's say when he cried and I had that incident where this person in our life said, "Oh, because crying helps," and I told them, "Hey, this is, he doesn't need to be pushed and stuff." Like, I look back on that stuff and think, I grew up with a lot of times the inner voice starting to win over, saying, shameful things about myself. And you know what? I just felt like I was somebody who had something wrong with them. But I look back at that situation with my kiddo crying, like that was his feelings coming out and expressing themselves. It might not always be in the most convenient time, but do emotions just wait for the convenient times to happen? No, they don't. And I'm glad that my son is capable of at least expressing who he is right now. And I want to encourage those friendships, those bonds, and the understanding of others along the way, rather than saying, "Why aren't you there now?" I want to say, "Man, look at where you are now. This is amazing. And I get to be with you as you continue."
That's beautiful, brother. I think you're right. I think we need to give some grace to our kiddos, to ourselves, to people in general. I want to ask you, though, before we wrap this up, what would you say to that guy? What does a conversation look like with that dad?
Well, it depends on the probably the moment I'm in, my emotional state. But to be honest, this person has also expressed to me that, sometimes they have anger issues and stuff like that, and they don't want to be that way to their kid. So I guess the thing is that I would definitely want to say, I know that you have a determination in you to be a better version of a father toward your kid than what you maybe had when you grew up, and you're working toward that. So I want to acknowledge that. I also want to acknowledge that what took place and the words that were said were out of line. It was a tantrum. It was essentially you took over in the moment something that you didn't want the kids to do. So instead of allowing them their emotional space, you took that from them and then decided your emotions mattered more, and you weren't able to control yourself. Triggers, when we lose our cool and we can't regulate, that's usually an indication that hey, we probably need to pause, take a breath, and that guy didn't do that. So with all that being said, I would say, hey man, that was a difficult situation, and I'm sorry that it's hard. My son does have some tendencies about him that I continue to work on, and I do believe that in that moment those were denied, and there was an expectation placed on him that isn't always reasonable, knowing who he is. And that doesn't mean that his behavior was, quote unquote, okay, but it does mean that we have an opportunity to work with them to model the best example. And your example in that moment was not your best. It was harmful. And to go further with it, I would then place an expectation on future scenarios. And we talked about boundaries and control and manipulation. So my thing would be this. I would say to a parent, based on what we've experienced previously,
if you talk to my son like that, I'm going to hit you with the bar of soap and a sock.
But based on our exchange based on our experiences we've had, you've admitted to the anger concerns and stuff. Should I see that happen again, I'm going to point it out in the moment. And if you choose to kind of carry on with how you're acting, I will remove myself and my kiddo from that moment. I don't want to deny the friendship that my kiddo has with your kiddo, but I also do not want to enable something like that again, because that's an example where our kids are going to see if I'm the bigger, if I'm the louder, if I have more physical dominance over you, then I can do whatever I want, and I can scare you into getting my way. No, thank you.
Yeah, brother. A lot of angry reactions come to mind. What I think of when I put myself in your shoes and how I think I would have handled it. It honestly gets my heart racing when I think about it.
I hear you.
Hypothetically, it really does, man. It boils my blood. But I think if more cooler heads were to prevail throughout me and my choices, I think I would do what you're saying and what my wife does, which is run the tape back. Let's watch the tape.
Yeah. Well, the way I look at it is this way: is the way it was stated sounded like a rejection of self or a rejection of my kiddo. And instead, we want to reject the idea that this behavior that's coming from this person is who they are. So I reject that hurt, and I want to work with you. I want to create a space of calm and understanding. If I reject all of you and say, start putting out threats, then clearly I've stepped over the line and I don't really understand you, and I've chosen to not have curiosity. I've chosen my own path, and my own path of tantrum. My own path of tantrum is not getting me anywhere positive. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. You're a good man, JJ, because when that happened, you do have a poise about you, which I respect and admire, because you could cut this guy out of your life and, teach our kids to just kind of close doors to avoid uncomfortable things. But, I think that you still have a willingness to have further conversations about that. And I can respect that, for the listeners, when this happened to JJ, he texted me and said, I really need to call you and quietly yell. I said, what does a quiet yell look like?
So it's kiddos nearby.
If you imagine what JJ looks like quietly yelling, I think that's what he looks like just yelling. So,
well, if you've seen those movies where like the person is like beet red and they're shaking a little bit and the steam starts coming out of their ears or smoke, that's the quiet yell.
Yeah, I don't appreciate what you just did. Well, thank you, brother, for sharing your vulnerability and walking through that with me, and giving ourselves grace, man. Giving grace just out in general to ourselves and the external world. I think we got to do so. So thank you for sharing that vulnerable story. I appreciate you, brother, and the spin that you put on it. So
Yeah, thanks, buddy. One other thing I'll just say quickly is that, sometimes when our kids are oppositional, that's just them trying to say, "Hey, can you take a second to try and understand where I'm coming from?"
yeah.
And when they have neurodiversity, it's like, we got to focus on me first before I get to your thing. That's what opposition is sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, grace, man.
Grace, man.
Thank you for sharing that, brother. I love the off script daily life
episodes we do. I know this is where we probably get most vulnerable. I don't know if our kids are going to grow up and be like, "Why did you say that story on here?" But I don't know. Yeah. I honestly think that the connection comes from the vulnerability and from sharing these stories. Yeah, so I hope you guys find as much of it as JJ and I do talking to each other on here about it. So I hope you guys continue to listen. This has been the ADHDads. I'm your host, CJ.
I'm JJ.
And until next time, I don't know. I didn't think that through. Well, we'll see you next time.
This has been the ADHDads.
Later.